guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another episode of the Daily Download. We'll be going through the most recent Arsenal transfer news and discussing it all here today, right now. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Now, before we get started, a couple of things. I did a show this morning with Zach Lowy. It was a very informative kind of sit down interview with him, and we kind of talked about some of the biggest talents coming from the Portuguese league, not necessarily Portuguese players, but players coming out of that league and coming to the Premier League. And we know firsthand we've gotten one of them. His name is Fabio Vieira. So we discussed at the beginning of the show a lot about Fabio Vieira, what kind of player he is, and that kind of thing. Then we moved on to Darwin Nunez. We talked about Otavio as well, who is going to maybe potentially sign for Leeds. And we touched on Paulina and Matthias Nunes as well, who are also linked to Fulham and Wolves. So it was a very good, about an hour-long show. I highly suggest you guys watch that after you watch this one. Laid back, chill. He gave such good information regarding the Portuguese league. He's an expert. So, and we also talked about George Mendes, which I've been calling him Jorge Mendes, and Zach told me that was incorrect. It is George Mendes. So my bad. We talked about him as well and his influence on Arsenal's transfer window. So make sure you guys check that out. Excuse me. And I also just want to say thank you. Again, the numbers on the channel are growing at a crazy rate, and we're about 300 subscribers away from 10,000. And so thank you so much for that. I also hit 17K today on Justino Tweets, the Twitter account, and we've reached 5,000 on SheKnowsArsenal Twitter account. So thank you guys so much for all your support. If you guys are not following me on Twitter, please do so at Justino Tweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. That's where you'll get more information about the shows that I'm doing, as well as some of my thoughts about what's going on with Arsenal. So if you can't get enough, go ahead and follow there as well. Now, there's about 140 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we're going to go ahead and jump straight in. Well, if you've been living under a rock, get out from underneath that rock, because we got a here we go from Fabrizio Romano yesterday regarding Gabriel Jesus. Deal is done. On to do his medicals. And he should be announced, I think they said Wednesday. Let me check, make sure, and tell you guys where that information is coming from. Yeah, Jesus' medical is scheduled for tomorrow, so he could be probably announced by Wednesday or Thursday. So that's amazing news that's coming from Arsenal442.com. And so, yeah, that's excellent information. It's a great way to start the transfer window off. We are still probably about 3 signings away from people maybe feeling like, like we've completed the window, so this is still the beginning. Fabio Vieira was an amazing start. Obviously, Matt Turner, who we'll talk about in a second as well. But Gabriel Jesus is our number one target and was always our number one target. And that was very clear by the way that we started talking to him early on during the season, and we're able to capture him, this week. And so the deal is 45 million pounds. There's different, reports around what the wage package looks like, but the most reliable links have said somewhere around 190K per week, which would make him one of our highest earners, along with Thomas Partey. So, or Yakubu, whatever you want to call him these days. And so it's a big signing, it's a big signing. And I think there has been a lot of maybe a division in the fan base among, on whether or not Jesus is the right guy. So I think that has driven down maybe the excitement around the deal. But this is a huge signing, regardless if you like the player or not. He's leaving Manchester City to come to Arsenal. I get that, people say oh, well, that's because Haaland and Alvarez have come in. They didn't really want to sell him. They would have rather have kept him. And if I'm Pep, I would have wanted to keep him as well, because it keeps that, that quality and depth up there. Gabriel Jesus, quality player, always loved him. I'm going to find the clip of me on Highbury Squad saying last season that I wanted him to come, and a lot of people laughed at me. Still, people are still laughing at me, but it's happened. I feel like I've spoken this into existence. And so now there's a lot of like, well, how many goals do you expect him to get? Do we still need another center forward? Blah, blah, blah. I think with Gabriel Jesus and the whole thing about the goal scoring, we have to see, what happens with that. It could be that he needed to be the main man, start more games, and then maybe the goals would have came, they would have flowed, or maybe he's somebody that's going to underperform his XG. We just have to wait and see. And I do think that both things, I think there's an equal opportunity for both of those things to be true. And so we just have to wait and see who else we bring in. But I do think that he brings up the level of the Arsenal team. Like he just does from, having been around an elite environment where they've won trophies before. I think that could be very good for this young team that doesn't have a lot of pedigree when it comes to winning trophies. And then just what he can do on the pitch in terms of the technical level, he is superior to the players in our team. Whether or not he's more superior to Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, that holds no bearing on what the level he is at in regards to like Arsenal. Our team is a growing young team that needs better players around them, and I do think that he brings that. So, I mean, I think the signing is great, especially for where we're at and what the striker market looks like at the moment. So, yeah, I'm down for it, and so we're just waiting on the medical, and then he'll probably be announced sometime this week. And I think that's also why they got the Matt Turner announcement out of the way early this week, so that sometime at the end of this week they can announce Gabriel Jesus. Kevin says, "Hey, Jess, locked in from Antigua. Great. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much." I'm sure it's nice in Antigua, is it not? What is the weather like out there right now? Keenan says, statistically, Jesus has some of the best goal contributions in the Prem when he starts. He just needs to be the main man. And I'm glad you said that, because I do think it has something to do with that. I do think he has to kind of be a focal point, and that's what he'll be at Arsenal. I'm guessing he'll have about 15 goals this season in the Premier League. That's kind of where I think he'll be at. Maybe he'll exceed that, but I have a lot of confidence in this player. Like, I just think he's class. And when you watch him play, and like, I did see some stuff about, well, he's a tap-in merchant and he's not going to be getting the same type of service at Arsenal that he was at Manchester City. And I don't know. I just don't think people actually watch us play. We are definitely a cutback, tap in type of team as well. You don't really see a lot of hoofing crosses unless we've completely um, uh, we can't unlock the team and we're just trying to do something different. But for the most part, for me, we exist within the half spaces and we try to get our wide men to the end line so that they can cross it back and our strikers can tap it in. How many tap ins did we see Lacazette miss? Just straight up point blank shots, just straight to the keeper or whatever. We've seen the likes of Emil Smith Rowe scuff a couple, like everybody did it last season. And so we need players that are more clinical. And I do think Gabriel Jesus is more clinical than the players that we have, even if he's not the most clinical striker out there. So I think he needs to start. And I think we play the right type of football to get the most out of him. Yo-Yo says, it's a statement signing. Club keeps buying big while outside of the Champions League. Our reach is greater than KSE's. Fair enough. Enzo says Jesus is a class signing. I think he's a good signing. Christopher says Jesus will help raise Eddie's play. I hope so. I hope the influence that he has. I hope bringing in better players will make those younger players better, because I do think that they are improving, but they can improve so much more if they have better quality around them. And that's Eddie, that's Emil, that's Saka, that's Martinelli. It's all those young players. They all need better players around them. And so hopefully they go up a level as the quality of the team goes up a level. Keenan says, Jesus' movement and space creation off of the ball is world class. We are going to see Saka, Rafinha. hopefully. Odegaard, Vieira, and Martinelli's goal production go up levels with Jesus leading the line. Monty97 says, come on, you Gunners. Jesus is a gunner. We need to keep these high-quality signings coming. Nashville says 12 to 15 goals and a few more because of his pressing. Might not be him scoring, but he will be responsible. I mean, he's a creative, player, a creative forward, that is very good in the box. Like, there's just a lot of things about his profile that I think fits with what we're trying to do right now. Do I still think that there will be games where we will struggle and maybe need something different? Maybe. I'm not saying that I don't think that fear is not valid and it's not legitimate. Like, there's times even where Manchester City needs something different. But what I do think is that in terms of our plan A goes up a level. Plan A last season was Lacazette from November until he fell off a physical cliff, in about January, February. And, having a center forward that can do a lot of the link up play, but also get into the box and get on the end of things is important. And that's something that he can do. That's really what the good and the bad of what we saw with Lacazette is that his link up play really helped us. And that was when we were playing our best football. But his inability physically to get into the box and his lack of clinical finishing, because of whatever reason, confidence, whatever, we suffered. So I do think that, Gabriel Jesus improves plan A, but we haven't addressed plan B yet. And I get that that's a real fear and, a valid reason for maybe wanting something else. But again, having somebody that's like a target striker doesn't really help plan A, which is what we've been building over the last 2 seasons. So that's kind of like my take on that. Let's see. Semi says, when Mo Elneny sends that perfect weighted pass up the pitch to Jesus and puts it in the back of the net, world peace might be achieved. I love that. Swan says, can you do a comparison with City's goal scorers to see how much output we should expect from each of our attacking players? Yeah, I mean, when we get closer to, the beginning of the season, we'll definitely do some sort of like predictions type of show where we'll predict the amount of goals everybody will score. And maybe we'll weave some of that into it, to see where we need to get to, because obviously like Manchester City, I think last season scored about 100 goals. So let me just make sure that that's good information. Give me 1 second. Sometimes I just be making stuff up. No, I'm just joking. But really though, let's see. No, yeah, they had 99 goals. So yeah, they had about 100 goals, and Arsenal had 61. So, I mean, I don't think we need to get to 100 goals, but that's what we need to be aiming towards in the future. And so when you think about the amount of goals that they're getting from their front players and then also their midfielders, which I do think that we don't take enough notice of, a lot of Man City's goals come from midfield. That's something that we haven't had. And so having one midfielder that you're not going to get any goals from, which is Thomas Partey. We know we're not going to get any goals from him. We may get one or two, but that's not his primary goal. But making sure you have two midfielders flanking him, this is where the Tielemans conversation becomes a little bit more relevant, I believe, is that you need to have two midfielders that can contribute in goals. Look at Gundogan. Look at Bernardo Silva. Look at Kevin De Bruyne, who sometimes does play up top, but is really a midfielder. Phil Foden, who plays up top and in midfield. They get so many goals from those players, and we just don't have that. Martin Odegaard is somebody who I am going to be like, because I love him so much, I do think he needs to add more goals to his game, period. It's great to get into those shooting positions, but you can't always look to pass it off to somebody else. When he did shoot, he scored quite a bit of goals. And so I think he needs to double his goal contributions or his goals next season. But that's where Fabio Vieira comes in. That's where Tielemans comes in, and then you have your forward players who have to be able to get those goals. Gabriel Jesus has to have at least 15 goals in the Premier League. Saka, he's well on his way. He needs to have some goals. You have to bring in another goal scorer. And then Martinelli, somebody who got in such great positions last season has got to find his finishing touch. Um, but that being said, bringing in more experienced players will maybe relieve some of the pressure off of the young kids, and maybe you'll see them score more goals. So we can definitely do that, but that's my take on it. That is my take on it. Um, Yo-Yo says everyone needs to chip in. Gabriel Magalhaes has done his part. He has, and getting goals from center backs is good as well, and we also kind of maybe need to look at our fullbacks. Our fullbacks contributing enough assists, what's going on there. Yo-Yo says Gabriel Jesus will have few excuses not to hit the ground running due to his age and having played in the Prem. And I think that that's what Arsenal want in this transfer window is they want to be able to have a predictable outcome and the ability to, start off quickly. And that's what bringing in players from inside the league, that have some experience comes into play. So yeah, with Gabriel Jesus, I'm looking for goals early. I'm not going to be sitting here like he needs time to adapt. We don't play like, I'm not going to say we play like Manchester City, but it's not even like he'd be switching systems that much. Like he needs to come in and score goals. But I also think who he has behind him is going to be really important. Let's see. Denzel says, when you say Gabriel has to score more goals, who do you mean? Gabriel Jesus. That's what I mean. And Martinelli, both Gabriels. I think Gabriel Jesus, I expect him to score at least 15 goals in the Premier League. That's my expectation of him. Martinelli, I expect him to have at least 10 goals next season, if not getting closer to 15. The positions that he got into last season, like when you think about, the positions that he got into against Manchester City, there was so many opportunities for him, like in so many games, to just put the ball in the back of the net, and he just didn't have that finishing touch. I think Martinelli could score 10 to 15 goals next season if he just slows his mind down when he gets in front of the goal. So yeah, all three Gabriels need to score goals. Thunder Road says, when Jesus and Eddie do their phone celebrations, I hope Arteta will join in and pick up his phone from the other end. I can't imagine Arteta doing anything like that. He's so like, the thing about Arteta is like, he's so serious, and I'd like to see him do something fun, because I wonder if he's so boring. Like, I don't know. It would just be nice to see him do something funny. But yeah, there's about 300 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Next thing I want to talk about is Matt Turner. He was announced today, and I don't think that any of us were necessarily like shocked or anything about it because we had signed him in January. And I think it was important for Arsenal to get that deal done in January so we didn't have to spend any time in the summer looking for goalkeepers. I don't know about you, but one of the most boring positions to be looking at is a goalkeeper. And I do think goalkeepers are important, but ultimately, like if you stuck a watermelon on some sticks back there and stood it up on the pole, I'd probably be like, cool, let's play. That's how little I give a shit about goalkeepers. But I get that they're important, and backups are also important because we have a lot of games. And, we saw when you have backups that are not very good, like Runnerson, that could be really shocking to the system. So bringing in Matt Turner, I do think does more than one thing. It gives you quality backup, and he's a quality backup goalkeeper with experience, but it also opens up the door for Leno to go. But before we get into the Leno conversation, Matt Turner is somebody who, and I'm going to have a longer conversation about this with Sophie tomorrow on the Highbury squad at 10 p.m. UK. But Matt Turner, I don't think Arsenal fans need to be worried about this. I have seen some, oh my gosh, he didn't start playing football until he was 14. The fact that he didn't start till he was 14 and he's been able to become a professional football player, I think speaks more to how good he actually is than the lack of experience or something like that. And one thing that the US do pretty well is goalkeepers. We had Tim Howard and Brad Friedel. Like we've had really good goalkeepers in the past that have done well in the UK and in Europe. So goalkeeper is not really something. Matt Turner is something that I'm not worried about at all. And if I was worried about it, I would tell you guys straight up. I've had a lot of people ask me, like, do you think Matt Turner's good enough? Are you worried? I'm not worried at all. He's a backup. He's experienced. He's the number one for the US national team. And he's somebody that, he's a really good shot stopper. He's improved upon his using his feet, and he'll push Ramsdale without being somebody who feels like they're a number one, if that makes sense. So what you don't want is two number ones. I just don't think you can have that in the goalkeeper position. So Ramsdale is still the true number one. But if Ramsdale has some of those moments that he had last season, you could put Matt Turner in there and I would feel relatively comfortable. Of course, his playing out of the back is nowhere near as good as Ramsdale's, but he's good enough, and so he's better than Zach Steffen. You know, I know that people look at Zach Steffen and they see all the mistakes that he's made and just automatically think it's an American thing. No, that's a Zach Steffen thing. Matt Turner is very good. And I like the fee. It was like £5 million or something, plus two in add-ons, a 3-year deal with an option for another 12 months. So, it's a simple deal to do. It's not something we need to spend that much time on. Again, it's a backup goalkeeper. No reason to be like freaked out about it because he's American. But I think, interestingly, like that does open up the door for Bernd Leno to go. We know that Fulham has been interested in him. Areola, who I think was at Fulham, has left there to go to West Ham. That has been announced today. So Fulham's, interest in Bernd Leno might, really heighten now that we've brought in Matt Turner, and Matt Turner's been announced. Bernd Leno, what I want to say is that I think he's been really, really professional. And that one save that he made against Aston Villa, I think was just like an example of his professionalism and his ability to come out of the cold and still do the business. And I know since Ramsdale has come in, he's kind of lost his place in the German national team as their third goalkeeper. So he does need to go to somewhere else and be a number one. But he's been so professional. And I think has done a really, really good job. And I wish him all the best if and when he does go. And I think, there's been a little bit of rewriting history with Bernd Leno, and I think I've done a little bit of it as well. But over the years, he has been a really good goalkeeper for us. And before the thing was having this ball playing, basically like a sweeper goalkeeper, he was one of the best shot stoppers in the league. And the season where, I want to say it was maybe one of Unai's seasons, like it was him and Aubameyang were our best players, full stop. So I don't want to rewrite history and act like Bernd Leno is shit. I want him to get his spot back in the German national team. I'm not sure if he can get it back at this point, but I want him to get it back because I do think he's quality. We just have moved in a different direction, but I appreciate his professionalism and I wish him all the best. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. And as I suspected, here we go. Because I was just about to say, like, because I'll talk and then I'll look at the comments and I'm like, let's see if you guys are even listening to me when I'm talking about goalkeepers. Keenan says, I wouldn't put it past Turner to challenge for the starting spot. He's a solid keeper that fits MA's ball playing profile. Denzel says, I honestly feel bad for Leno, but it's football. Hopefully he can go to get to the German team. I mean, it's so close to the World Cup that I hope he gets a spot back. Like, I would hate for him not to, but equally, he probably could have left last summer. So, I don't know. Arsenal for Life says we should have kept Matty Ryan. He was quality for us. Well, he got offers to be a number one somewhere else. So you can't keep somebody who wants to go somewhere else. And he was interested in staying at Arsenal, but he was getting number one offers from, I think, Celtic and Real Sociedad, which is where he is now. So if you have the opportunity to be a number one somewhere or be a number two for Arsenal, I do think that you choose that because you just don't know when those opportunities will come back. So, I have to say that I think he might have done the right thing there. And it wasn't necessarily about Arsenal not doing the right thing there or not keeping him. It was he wanted to go somewhere else. So there you go. Yo-Yo says Leno would be making a mistake going to Fulham, in my opinion. Does anybody else feel that? I don't know if I feel that, like, that he would be making a mistake. I think staying in the Premier League is a good, I mean, if he's a number one, staying in the Premier League is not a bad thing. If you're thinking in terms of like relegation, he might have an exit clause, or something like that. I know, what's that man's name? Wood Workhorst. He had an exit clause in his contract when he signed for Burnley. So he could leave if they got relegated, which he's going to. So I wouldn't imagine that Leno would have something like that in his contract, but staying in the Premier League and keeping his family in London, where they've been for like, what, 3 or 4 years now, I don't think is that bad of a move, so it might be better for his family to do things this way. And as long as he's number one, I think he'll be fine. I mean, at Fulham, you're going to face a lot of shots. So people get to see what he can do. So Semi says Areola was at Fulham 2 years ago. Yeah, and then he was at West. And then he went to West Ham last season. Okay, so I got that part mixed up. That Areola was last season at West Ham, and he was the backup to Fabianski, and now West Ham have made that permanent. But the year prior, he was at Fulham. Fair enough. I got that one wrong. Enzo says Leno refused to go to Newcastle. Chris says Napoli are releasing Ospina. They've held precious interest in Leno, I think. Previous interest. Wonder what could materialize. But yeah, Fulham an option if they can stump up a fee. And I think most of the money is in the Premier League. So, if you could get how much would you expect for Bernd Leno at this point? 1 year left on his deal. What would you expect to get back for a fee for Bernd Leno? Let me know what you guys think about that. Yo-Yo says Fulham are a yo-yo club like Norwich, cannon fodder. Yeah, no, I get that. I do get that. The Legend of Renegade says, Jess, do you think Martinelli could get unsettled if he loses his starting place to Jesus or Rafinha? I would love if he was converted to a center forward. Here's my take on this. If you're unsettled because you don't have your starting spot and you're 20 years old and you scored 7 goals last season, 6 or 7 goals last season, and you want to agitate because we brought in 2 new forwards that are better than you, then you don't need to be at Arsenal. We don't need to hold space for these young players. If they're good enough, they'll play. And if they back themselves, they will fight for their position. Getting unsettled because we bring in better players when you've only scored 6 goals last season is not the type of, attitude I would expect from Martinelli. So I don't think he would become that. But if he did, then you don't need to be at Arsenal. We don't need players that don't want to fight for their position. We don't need players that feel like they should have a nailed on starting position. This is the new world. This is the wild, wild west now. You got to have 22 outfield players. You have to have strength and depth. The game is changing. And so we should not be not improving the squad to hold space for 20-year-olds, especially if they're not scoring enough goals for you to get into the top 4. Not saying it's their fault, but I'm just saying we didn't have enough goals in us. And I want players that want to fight for their position. I believe Martinelli is that type of player. I think he'll see it as a challenge. I don't think he'll see it as a reason to agitate for a move. But that's my thoughts on that. Jasper says 8 million for Leno. Nashville says 7 to 9 million for Leno. Let's see. Semi says 8. Mamang says 8 million. She Knows Football says $50 and a bag of chips. Matt says 8 to 10 million. PW or P White says 10 million. Illumide says at least 10 million. So around the 8 to 10 million zone. Keenan says Bernd Leno is worth 20 million in terms of quality, but we're only going to get 8 to 10. So we're all kind of like in the same, ballpark here. I did see one 10 to 15, I think. Oh no, Marsh Milo says 15 to 20. So yeah, I think we're in I think we're right around that ballpark, and I do think that money exists within the Premier League and not necessarily outside of it. So we do have to kind of see what happens with him, but I would expect to see some outgoings soon. I'm not necessarily worried about it, but I would imagine if we're spending all this money, we have outgoings lined up. So that's Bern Leno, that's Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who I do feel like we have to wait for Spurs to buy Spence, and then they'll come and get Ainsley Maitland-Niles, the domino effect. But Fulham have an opening, so I could see Bern Leno going pretty quickly. So we'll see. Harsha, it was about 5 million for Turner, plus like 2 in add-ons or something like that. So yeah, so there's 300 of you guys in here. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about Lisandro Martinez. This is a very interesting one because Arsenal are desperate to get this player. And I am also desperate to get this player. And so every time a report comes out on him, I freak out a little bit because I just want it to be over. Honestly, like I just want this player to come in. And if you're new here and you're like, why do you give a shit so much about Lisandro Martinez when we're in for Rafinha? The reason why is because we need really good backup for Kieran Tierney and Thomas Partey and Gabriel, and he represents that in my eyes. I think he's a really good player. He's a player I've liked for a long time. Never thought we'd ever be interested in him. Never thought there'd be an opportunity for him to come to Arsenal. I do realize that there's a lot of maybe fear about his height, which I do think could present an issue, especially if you have to put, a center back pairing together of Ben White and Lisandro Martinez. You don't want to be playing against Crystal Palace or Liverpool or any of the, bigger sides, Brentford on days like that. But I have my theory on how we're going to use Lisandro Martinez, which I don't think is going to be in a normal center back position, but I'll leave that for a little bit later because I want to do a more in-depth video on that later. But desperate for this player because of the technical quality. I'm calling him technical Torreira. He's everything that we believe Torreira to be, but with the technical ability of some of the best midfielders out there. His passing ability is something that I just think if you have somebody like Gabriel Jesus with his movement, we could really cook teams. And he's also aggressive enough in the tackle and with his pressing that we could really push up the pitch. He's not unathletic. He's somebody that can run. So he's not like slow or anything like that. And I just think he represents the type of player that like could take us up a level, tactically as well. So I'm really looking at him as a backup for Kieran Tierney or somebody that would start in front of him. That's what I'm looking at him as. And if I don't know Arteta that well, but I have a feeling that that's what he's going for. So I want Lisandro Martinez so badly. And every time I see a report on him, I just think to myself, I'm like, could we actually get it done? So let me give you the latest on what's going on with technical Torreira. So I'm not going to call him that forever, I promise, guys. So Lisandro Martinez, this is coming from Mike Verwey. I'm getting that wrong. But a 40 million euros with add-ons included is the bid that we put in for Lisandro Martinez. And it's said to have maybe, I think the terminology was something like made Ajax unsure, but what I think that means is that they are considering it because Ajax have held this firm view of not wanting to sell Lisandro Martinez, so the price was really high. But 40 million in euros with add-ons included is not necessarily like super close to the 50 million asking fee, but I do think it's something that could get them talking to you and get you negotiating. And also there hasn't been any reports of it being rejected. So like our initial bid sent for Raphinha was an out of hand was rejected. This one hasn't been rejected yet. And may not get rejected. It may be enough. You never know. In regards to Martinez, he's keen on the move to Arsenal. We know that some reports are saying he's keen to come into the Premier League. The more earlier reports where he's keen to come to Arsenal, likes the project, and him and his agent are pushing, which has made Ajax mad because they don't want to lose all their players. And I would imagine like Ajax, they're a selling club, but like every couple of years they have to rebuild because they lose so many players. They've already lost Gravenberch, they lost Majraoui, they lost Sebastian Aller, and now Manchester United want to dismantle that team and take Antony and Yuri Timber. And now we're looking at Lisandro Martinez. What I thought was interesting is this is coming from Terry Flores, who does have very good contacts in the industry. I have to say that. I know some people think he's just somebody that just makes things up, but he absolutely does not. He has very good contacts, and he put out there that Arsenal have been working on Lisandro Martinez since April. So that does speak to what our strategy has been. Like, we've known who our targets are, and that's how we've been able to put in bids quickly, which we kind of need to, because you really don't want Manchester United, who's seemingly our biggest rival for Lisandro Martinez, to get the De Jong deal done and then be able to turn their focus onto Lisandro Martinez, because it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get Yuri and Timber, and they're only going to sell one or the other. So my thoughts on this is that we have to get Ajax to the table, and start negotiating quickly and wrap up the deal before anybody else can jump in or drive the price up further, and before anybody gets Yuri and Timber, or Manchester United buy Antony, because we don't know how many players they're willing to sell. I would imagine they probably only want to sell one more, and if they want to sell another, it's going to have to be stupid money. And so we need to get this done as quickly as possible. There hasn't been any concrete talk about Manchester United putting in a bid for Lisandro Martinez. It's all kind of been, they're interested, but Arsenal have made him a priority and we're putting in bids, which feels very similar to the situation with Gabriel Jesus and Raphinha, that although there's all this other interest from other clubs, we're the only team really putting in bids. So I think that's a positive thing. Also, a lot of the Manchester United being super interested in Lisandro Martinez is coming from the Dutch press, which makes me also think that it's being fed by Ajax to drive the price up further, and use Manchester United's interest to get that price up. But nevertheless, we have to hurry up, because, and I think that the club is going as fast as they can, but I just think that this is a deal that if they want to get it done, it needs to be done as quickly as possible, because you just never know. But we'll see what happens in the next couple of days with this one. I would imagine that we would get some sort of update this week. We've sent in a bid and it's damn close. Not super close, but I think that's about as much as you should get for Lisandro Martinez. And says Arsenal assumes that the new offer for Lisandro Martinez makes the transfer at least negotiable, which is pretty much what I was saying, that you have to put in a bid that's close enough to what they're asking for so that you can start negotiating the add-ons and what's going to come up front and how you're going to stagger the payments. And so that's pretty much where we are with him. But I freaking love this player and I want it bad, but I get why some people are apprehensive. I did watch the Arsenal Vision scouting report on him, and then there was a lot of like, could he actually be a center back? He doesn't look like a Premier League center back. I'm not sure how we would use him. Defensively, he's quite aggressive. Is that gonna invite red cards and things like that? My take on this is that he'll be a left back and he'll probably spend a lot of time playing the position because Tierney can't stay fit, and also Tierney is not really an inverted left back. And I think Arteta likes inverted fullbacks. That is my idea. So he can also back up Gabriel. You might want to place Saliba next to him just so you make sure you have some height. But there's some things that that you can do with Lisandro Martinez. You can also play him in midfield. I just think that this is a really important player to have, especially when you have like Nuno and you have Sambi, you have these young players backing up such pivotal figures in our first 11. You need something else. Lucas AFC says he's got one red card in his career. For me, it's not an issue. For me, it's not an issue with his. I don't want somebody who does not tackle aggressively. And I don't see. It's not like a lot of fouls. It's he just tackles hard. I don't know if people know anything. Like South American players are rash. Like they tackle hard. Like they don't give a shit. And so I do think that as long as it's not a bad tackle, it's probably fine. But I don't really want players that are afraid to tackle. So I think it's a positive thing. So Enzo says, I would prioritize Martinez before Raphinha. Harsha says, would you sacrifice Rafinha for Lisandro? Oh gosh, that's such a difficult question because I would say probably, because I do think that we could bring in another wide forward, but I don't think you can find very many players like Lisandro Martinez that can cover 3 positions so well. It's tough to say. Tomorrow I'd probably say something different. What I will say is backup for Thomas Partey, or competition / backup, whatever you want to call it, for Thomas Partey and Kieran Tierney, and also midfield, are more important to me than that additional forward. But I still think that all 3 are pivotal for our transfer window. So yeah, it's a hard one. And Kit says, what will be Martinez's primary position in the squad? Don't think he'll be playing much for the fourth choice CB. I think he's going to play left back. That's my take. I think he's going to play left back. Keenan says Rafinha has proven as a much higher ceiling than Martinez. We got to get off the versatile player mentality. We need specialists. I actually disagree. I think we need players with more well-roundedness to their game. I actually think we have too many specialists. We've had so many specialists in the past that players can't do more than one thing. One of the biggest specialists in our team is Granit Xhaka. He can't do anything but the one thing that he's been doing. And so I think we need more well-rounded players that can play multiple positions. I actually am the opposite of you, Keenan. I think versatility is the key. I think specialists are outdated. The players like Jorginho, he's a specialist, but he can't do anything else besides be that deep lying playmaker. And so I think it's important to have that versatility. But in terms of like Rafinha versus Martinez, it would be hard for me to say that I would prioritize Martinez over Rafinha. But I just think this is very important for our season because of the way that the last 2 seasons, I do think our season, like it derailed off of the back of Kieran Tierney and Thomas Partey injuries, ultimately. So I do think it's really, really important. But that being said, I want Rafinha done. Okay. I want Rafinha done. Okay. Yo-Yo says Martinez and Tommy play inverted. They will effectively join Partey in midfield. That sounds amazing. Yo-Yo, stop it. Stop it. You speak in my language. You speak in my language. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I do a lot of time thinking about this stuff. Like, just a sidebar. You guys know I'm obsessed with the game. You guys know this, but I should have known this is where I would be. Because when I was younger, I used to because I played football, growing up. And I would have pieces of paper that I would write down our lineups on and put different formations and different players in different positions. And I swear my mom would be looking at me like I was crazy. But I've been doing this for years, y'all. I should have known I was going to be here. But these are things that keep me up at night, how we use Martinez. And I just feel like that's exactly how we use him. Squeeze the pitch, push them forward. Gosh, it would be beautiful. And so I do think it's 2 inverted fullbacks, Lisandro Martinez and Tomiyasu. 2 center backs staying back in Saliba, White, or Gabriel, whichever 2 out of 3 that you want. And then you just push right up, and then you have all these really versatile, very active, very good forwards running around. And then you also have your midfielders, your eights pushed right up. Oh, beautiful. It's beautiful. Zion says Martinez should definitely be the priority, as Tierney and Partey are injury prone, and he covers both positions. Plus, he's better than Granit Xhaka. So the addition to the 11 Raphinha isn't that. Let's see. Lucas says it's not how it works. You need goals and assists from your fullbacks. Not enough goals with Lisandro, Thomas, and Odie in one lineup. I disagree. And the reason why I disagree is that I think the idea that your fullbacks have to bomb on and they need to be goal scorers, it depends on the system that you play and what players are you willing to get into the attack. So if you're not going to have your fullbacks in attack, then you're going to have more of your midfielders in your attack instead. So that goes back to the conversation around, should we remove Xhaka? And I think if you have Lisandro Martinez, Xhaka automatically becomes redundant, because the whole point of having Granit Xhaka is so that he can drop into left back and cover and kind of dictate play from that position, almost as an inverted left back, and letting Kieran Tierney bomb forward, and become somewhat of a forward or a midfielder, or left midfielder. If you have two inverted fullbacks that push into midfield, then you have two eights that could become more goal scoring, can do more on the edges of the box. And that's like, Thomas Partey would be your only midfielder that doesn't score goals if you replace Granit Xhaka with somebody like Tielemans, or you have Vieira. Odegaard can score more goals. He just needs to be pushed to do it. So if you have 5 players that you want to attribute to your attack, would you prefer it to be 2 10/8s and 3 forwards? Or would you rather it be your 2 fullbacks and your 3 forwards and all of your midfielders be more defensive? What would be your choice there? I do think that the idea that fullbacks have to bomb on and they have to be goal scorers is not outdated, but dependent on your system. So for me, would I rather my fullbacks be forwards, or would I rather my fullbacks be midfielders? That doesn't necessarily mean you lose your goals. It just depends on then how you use your eights. And so for me, I'd rather have my eights in those advanced positions than my fullbacks. It just depends on how you play. That's a long reason to that's a long description for something that I wanted to do in a video. I need to get off this subject. Hakum says, so are you saying if we get Lisandro, we don't necessarily need Tielemans? What I'm saying is we don't need Xhaka. Xhaka drops into left back. Tielemans can push right up at the edge of the box and dictate something from right on the edges of the box. That's what we miss. We don't have, and I think this is also why we're getting Fabio Vieira, because he's much better at the final pass and the final action in and around the box. He's better than Odegaard doing that. Tielemans is better at that than Xhaka. So Xhaka, to me, automatically becomes redundant when Lisandro Martinez comes in, because he's not very good in the attacking third, and having somebody that's an inverted left back means you don't need Granit Xhaka dropping in. So there you go. There you go. All right. So now moving forward from that. So again, just to recap, we put in another bid that is getting Ajax to the table to negotiate, which is important because we need to go ahead and get that one done. 373 of you guys in here like the video, subscribe to the channel. Last but not least, let's talk about Raphinha, the big one. I think I do think we need another attacker, even though we're bringing in Gabriel Jesus. It'll be the medicals tomorrow. Gabriel Jesus is going to help you with goals, and he's going to help you in the attack, but you need somebody else that is a killer and a goal scorer. I do think Raphinha adds that. He does need to go up a level, but I do think he does that for you. It's another important signing. All of the signings are important as far as I'm concerned. Some may hold more priority than another based on what your idea of why our season derailed, I think, is how you will look at how the priorities of the window, right? So let's see. So this is coming from Sam Lee from The Athletic. He says, I've spoken to someone last week who reckons that and has been told Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling are done deals. So people are saying that that means that Chelsea are out of the race for Raphinha. We'll see. But right now, the most important factor to whether or not we get Raphinha, in my eyes, is whether or not Barcelona extend Ousmane Dembele. Imagine your transfer window hinging on a decision from Ousmane Dembele, who, by the freaking way, has a lot of nerve, not wanting to extend and wanting more money when he spent all of his time on a medical table. Okay, but this is coming from Ben Jacobs. He says Barca sources talking with confidence that Ousmane Dembele will stay. At no point have Chelsea agreed terms, so it's really his only option unless something dramatic changes in the next 24 hours. No truth whatsoever in a late Liverpool bid. No interest at all. No PSG offer either. Arsenal are keen to sign Rafinha and are ready to fend off any interest from other clubs. And so basically, we're just waiting to see what happens with Barcelona. Deco has told Barcelona that. So this was earlier on, right? That Deco has told Barcelona that they could seal the Raphinha deal for 35 million euros, but Arsenal came in with a higher offer, which is literally the smartest thing that we could have done, because really Barcelona can't compete with us at the moment financially. I know that they have their financial levers in place, and that's going to open up more financial opportunities for them, but they're so in the red, like in terms of they're in not in fine I won't say financial ruin, but they're in a position now where even some of the money that they're getting has to go to just keeping the lights on. Like they can't just put all 700 million of that into transfers. Not only that, they have priorities. Their priorities are to sell Frankie de Jong so that they can get Bernardo Silva, bring in Lewandowski, and bring in Jules Koundé. So if they re-sign Ousmane Dembele, they don't have to spend, 50 plus million euros on Rafinha. So it's really important with what Barcelona want to do, and it looks like Ousmane Dembele. It looks like it's positively moving in the direction of him extending with Barcelona, which would be important for the Rafinha deal. There are a lot of Arsenal accounts that are saying that it's imminent or it's 99%. I'm still kind of like, just wait, because we know how deals can get scuppered at the last minute. I do think Arsenal, when they're confident of something, they allow more information to come out. So, the likes of David Orenstein talking about it, I do think gives you a positive signal that Arsenal are somewhat confident, but things can always go wrong. So with the Raphinha one, I don't think, like I see people saying it could be announced at the end of the week. I don't think so. I think we announce Gabriel Jesus, and then next week is when we'll get more information about where we actually are in this deal. But I think on the last show, we talked about the 55 million plus 15 that was out there for Rafinha. If Barcelona are fully out of the race and nobody else comes in, I believe we get this deal done for 50 million, because nobody else will be there, and that's what Leeds actually really want. Arsenal were just out there saying we're willing to go up to 65 just to keep Barcelona away. So getting Rafinha for something around 50 million pounds, I think, is about what he's worth. I'm sure there'll be some add-ons and obviously commission for George Mendes and just a foot, but he's about a 45 million pound player, in my opinion. So I don't think we'd be grossly overpaying like a lot of people were saying, but you'll see what the final figures look like if and when he signs. But this is a statement of intent. As far as I'm concerned, I do think Gabriel Jesus was the number one target, the standard, the foundational signing for the window. But Rafinha is definitely one that takes you into another stratosphere. I see a lot of people acting like he's overrated. I don't think Rafinha is overrated. I really don't. I think he's playing in a crap team with championship level players. No offense to Leeds. And he's a player that's ready to go to the next level. And so I hope to see him do that at Arsenal. Lucas says, we need to stop being scared. We compete for those players. It is clear. Let's see. Anthony says, one bad season doesn't mean a player isn't good. What y'all talking about? You guys are talking about, you guys are talking about Tielemans? Fair enough. You guys are, Keenan says Tielemans is world class. Hey. But yeah. It was like the comments were backed up. Let's see. Sherry says, I feel the most Arsenal should be paying for Rafinha is £50 million. What do you guys think? What's the most that you guys think that we should pay for Rafinha? I see a lot of people saying like, you don't want to overpay. And I know we don't want to overpay, but what's the threshold here for how much we should be paying for a player like Rafinha? There's 430 of you guys in here, so get in the chat box and let me know. Let's see. All right, getting some answers here. Nick Knack says 60 million. Hakum says Rafinha with his valuation is overrated. Christopher says 50 million. Tawanda says 65 million. Anthony says 55 million. She Knows Football says 48 million. Zach 10 says 55 million pounds. Piper says 45 million. Lucas says 55 with add-ons, so that's not anything additional. That's all in 50 million. My mind says 55 million. Keenan says 75 million. Nashville says 65 million for Rafinha. P. White says 45 to 50. So yeah, we're about all in the same ballpark, except for a couple of outliers that are at about 60 to 65 million. I think it's about 45 to 50 million is about what he's worth, but I would be willing to go up to 55 million for him. I would not go any higher than that. Rafinha still needs to go up to another level, I would imagine. But man, the guy is very, very good. And could you imagine getting Raphinha and Gabriel Jesus for about 100 million? 100 million worth of forwards. That definitely improve you, take you to another level. Prime age forwards at that with Premier League experience for 100 million. I think that alone is better than what we would have done getting in Osimhen, because Osimhen would have cost you the same amount for both. So yeah, and I know that some people are like, we should have got Raphinha and Osimhen. I don't think that that's possible with everything that we want to do. If we want to bring in a midfielder and Lisandro Martinez and Fabio Vieira, I think it would have been Osimhen or the two. And I like the two better than just Osimhen by itself. And I do think that there's an opportunity to go get Osimhen next summer, because there's still going to be a gap for the tall forward. I know you guys are looking for that. Some of you guys are really looking for that. There still would be a gap there. And there's would be opportunity to go get him next summer maybe. But yeah, I like the two better than just the one, I think. She Knows Football says nothing, but just gives a super chat. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Let's see. Yo-Yo says Gabriel Jesus, Tielemans, Ralph will have few excuses not to settle in quickly. I can't wait. Fair enough. Hal says if Barca signs Dembele, Abde, who a young, skillfully better and cheaper than Rafinha, will be available. So they have a young player there that you feel like is better than Rafinha. Fair enough. Sherry says, I feel we would see the best of Rafinha at Arsenal. Neymar says, Nick Nack says Neymar, Jesus, and Rafinha. I love Neymar, but I don't want him at Arsenal, and I don't think we could facilitate it. I just don't. I can't do it. So I see a lot of you guys kind of talking about, Tielemans, and I just think we have to wait. Arsenal are prioritizing Rafinha and Lisandro Martinez deals. Do I think that Arsenal can look at those deals and negotiate the Tielemans one at the same time? I do. But I also think, again, that we're looking at some negotiating, and we don't want to pay more than 25 million for Tielemans, and Leicester want more than that. And so we're going to try to squeeze him a little bit. Everything that I've seen from the most reliable journalists that I know of, I said that the deal is still on, but somebody has to negotiate or compromise. And so I get that we're worried, but even if in the next week or two we're able to get Raphinha and Lisandro Martinez, the window is still open. And so we just need to wait it out a little bit. Now, if we start to see that, nothing is moving or somebody says the deal is off, then I would start to worry. Because again, I'll say it again, if we don't improve the midfield with somebody like Tielemans, I am not a happy girl. I think it's a huge black mark on the window, regardless of who else we get. But I still want to give them more time to get the Tielemans one done, because I do feel like at this point, I feel it's negotiations, 100%. And Leicester are not stupid, She Knows Football, thank you so much for your super chat. Said it's better to understand than to be understood. Let's see. Hakum says Leicester is annoying. Nashville says Tielemans is a cherry on top of the window. I think Rafinha is the cherry. I think Tielemans is a part of the cake. That's my take on it. But also the Tielemans deal, there's nobody else in for him. We know he wants to come. There was a Belgian outlet that came out that said he's looking for a resolution soon. He wants to leave. So we know that if we don't act quickly with Lisandro Martinez and Raphinha, we could be toast in terms of those deals. So it's a risk, but it could be a risk that works out in our favor. Kingsley says Tielemans is a good deal. I think so as well. Let's see. I saw a question here. I think I started. Orlu says 25 million for Vieira. Would that keep him happy in the long run? He doesn't look happy with a due introduction video. Would that keep him happy in the long run? He doesn't look happy with the do in the introduction video. I don't know what you mean by that. I don't think we should look into, if you're saying like Vieira won't be happy at Arsenal and he didn't look happy with a do. He doesn't look happy at with his salary. Well, it depends on what he was getting paid at Porto. I'm sure he was getting paid pennies. So happy in the long run, probably not. If he's good for Arsenal, he'll want more money. But he was happy to come. He hasn't even kicked a ball. And the idea that he didn't look happy, I think, is also projecting upon people that we don't know very well. We don't know Fabio Vieira from a can of paint. We don't know what he's like, so I don't think he necessarily looked. And I also want to say that some of the players, especially the ones that come from other countries and speak another primary language other than English, tend to look less excited when they're doing interviews because they have to listen harder and they need to be able to, understand and then repeat back and things like that. So I would imagine the first things that people said about Nuno Tavares is he didn't look happy. Well, he was probably trying to figure out what the hell y'all were saying. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to really worry about that much. He's a young kid, probably getting paid more at Arsenal than he was getting paid at Porto. Hasn't even kicked a ball yet, and if he didn't want to be here, why would he sign? She Knows Football. Thank you so much for your super chat. Says the greatest champion ever made that quote. Bill Russell, more rings than fingers, 11 championship is better to be understand than to be understood is what he said since he thrived during the evil racism. I like that quote very much. Thank you so much for putting that out there. And I do think that's true. It's better to understand than to be understood, 100%. Sheridan says, I feel like we're going to sign another player we don't know about in the media. That would be cool. Like, I like the little out of the blues, signings that come out. So yeah, with Rafinha, just to just tie things up with him, is that a lot of the stuff about the Barcelona thing is very pivotal to what we do in this window. So we just have to wait it out in terms of Rafinha. Like, if Dembele does sign, which it looks like that's what's going to happen, then we could potentially tie up the Rafinha deal for maybe even a little bit less than what was already spoken about. I don't think it's anywhere near as imminent as people are making it out to seem, but I do think we have a good chance as long as nobody else really jumps in. And so it's a big signing, and I really hope it gets done, so we'll see what happens with that. And I think that's all I really wanted to update you guys on. There hasn't been very many like big updates, but we know we're working. We know the club is doing as good as they can. Just to do some general housekeeping really quick, we're going to wrap up here in just a second. There's almost 500 of you guys in here, so like the video, subscribe to the channel. When you leave here, go into the interview sections of my channel and you'll see a interview with Zach Lowy. And we talked about all the talent coming out of the Portuguese league. It's really fun. We went over Fabio Vieira, Darwin Nunez, who I know is Uruguayan, but came from the Portuguese league, Paulinha, Matthias Nunes, and also Otavio. So take a look at that. Also talked about George Mendes's like influence on our transfers this summer. Tomorrow, I'll be on the Highbury squad at 10 p.m. UK time to do another show with Sophie. Again, remember, we're doing a collaboration, kicking it with Soph and Jess. It'll actually be on the Highbury squad tomorrow, so make sure you tune in there. On Wednesday at 3 p.m. UK time, I'll be on with Tim Stillman to talk a little bit more about Gabriel Jesus, Edu, and Raphinha. That's going to be a big show. Tim Stillman from the Arsenal Vision podcast will be on this channel talking all things Brazil. So I'm super excited about that. I have some other things, some other channels that I'll be on in the next couple of days. So I'll keep you guys in the loop on that. But if you guys are not following me on Twitter, make sure you do at Justinio Tweets and also at SheKnowsArsenal so you don't miss a thing. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everybody who has followed me on Twitter and is also, subscribed to the channel. We're right around the corner for 10,000 subscribers. So, and I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you for all the lovely super chats. Let's see. She Knows Football. You're always in here. Blaze as well. Yes, I am actually working on getting Alex, the Euro expert, to get on to talk about Saliba in the next couple of weeks as well. So we'll have a whole Saliba pod for you guys as well. Let's see who else. C. Wilder, thank you for showing up. Nashville Gooner. Yeah, Hakum. Yeah, so many new faces, Yo-Yo, and so many old faces. I love that, BX Gunner. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.